Hello and welcome back to Not the Same, a podcast that brings you true stories of real people sharing their personal testimonies of transformation. I'm your host, Rachel Heinberg. As we jump into episode 5 of the new season, I want to say thank you to each listener. How or when you found us doesn't matter. I'm just glad you did. And I'm grateful. Please take a moment to review or comment on whatever platform you're using. We are available just about anywhere, so pick your favorite and subscribe or follow. The last episode was a bit unique compared to the norm. We got to see how Katleho's life was really set up for greatness, and yet she still found herself making some hard decisions about what she truly believed. I love the perspective we gained from someone who really pursued God from a very young age. This week, I'm super excited to have Tsitsi Kinnear with me. We had the privilege to spend a couple of days in Stellenbosch, a beautiful city in the Western Cape of South Africa. I decided that an opportunity shouldn't be wasted and asked her if she'd share her story with me. Tsitsi and her husband, Ben, are currently pastoring a church here and are a great blessing to us personally and also in handling any legal paperwork for our churches across the nation. I know just the barest details about her life, so I'm eager to get into it. Thank you.
Thank you for having me.
I know I kind of sprung it on you, but I appreciate it. So go ahead and start with a little bit of your background, where you're from, parents, siblings, family life, and then just go from there.
Okay. So I was born in Zimbabwe, and when I turned 3, the whole family moved down to Namibia. So that's myself, my mom, my dad, and my 2 older brothers. So I was about 3 years old. We moved there. So
Are you Zimbabwean?
yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
I was thought you were in Namibia because you were raised there.
Yeah, I grew up in Namibia most of my life until I turned 18 and I came here. But I see Namibia just as much home as Zimbabwe is, simply because I grew up there and everyone I know and everything. Yeah, Namibia is just home for me.
What was the reason that you moved there?
Basically, economic opportunities. My dad was an accountant, and yeah, Zim was at a good place when we moved, but it just changed. It became worse. And I guess my dad called it. People had, and he just moved down and decided, no, let's try a different country and see how it works out.
So where in Zim were you born?
Bulawayo, actually.
Okay.
Bulawayo.
Bulawayo. Is it like a small town?
It's actually one of the bigger towns. Like Harare is the capital and Bulawayo is like second biggest, essentially.
Okay.
So yeah, it's one of the biggest cities.
Do you have any memories before?
You know what? I actually do have a memory of pre-3 where I tripped and fell and hurt my leg, but that's absolutely it. Nothing. Okay. I guess just photos is the only thing that we can have as memories.
So I'm assuming your parents were married.
Yes.
When they had you, there was 2 older
Yes. Yeah.
brothers, so you're the baby.
Yeah.
Oh. And what's the age difference between all of you guys?
The one above me, we have a 3-year difference, and between the 2 of them, it's a 2-year difference. Okay. So they were together, and I was essentially isolated as the baby, and I was the only girl. Yeah. So it felt like an only child. But
so you guys moved to Namibia, and you were 3, so you obviously started school there.
Yeah.
Did your parents find work right away?
Yeah, as an accountant, it was pretty easy to find a job. I remember we started off relatively, I would say, poor, because we basically moved with just what we had. But my dad quickly built it up, right? One of the things growing up is that my dad is a typical African, and our home was the typical African in the sense of work hard, you must be successful, you must do well. And it just was instilled in all 3 of us. You must work hard, you must be successful, you must work hard, you must be successful. Almost to a degree where it was unhealthy, but that is the general African way, if I can say, is that all I ever remember growing up was that pressure to be successful. You need to make it. You need to become someone. You need to do something great. You cannot just do nothing. You must do well. You must be great. And I even remember I was compared with kids my age, like other kids originally from Zim, and they were in the same boat as me, and they did extremely well at school, extremely well at sports. And I was just compared to that. Like, hey, you have to be like that. You have to be like such and such as child. Look, they're such good children. They respect their parents. They do well at school. They get all A's. I just always remember the pressure.
Did that start when you were quite young? As soon as you started school, do you have those memories of that?
Yeah. My dad was extreme in that. It was, you need to work hard. You need to work hard. You're going to be successful. You're going to be successful. Those were the words that were spoken to me in that belief. No, you are going to be successful. You're going to do something with your life, which in the good way, it made me driven. But on the adverse, I had no self-confidence, or not self-confidence, more of no self-esteem. You know, on the one hand, I would stand like, no, I can do this. I'm going to work hard. I'm going to do well. I'm going to work hard. I'm going to do well. But I really had such a low self-esteem. I didn't think very much of myself. Always would sit, I wouldn't even say, almost like an imposter syndrome, like, what are you doing? As much as I'll work hard. The thing with my dad specifically, nothing was ever enough. If I get a straight A and he's like, no, but were you the top of your class, right? Were you the best? If it's 97%, yeah, but what about the 3%? You know what I mean? Nothing was ever really enough. There was never a, oh, good job, well done. You know, there was never those type of affirmations. It was more of, you're going to do well, you're going to do well. And when you come with the result, it was more of a, okay, but you can do better. And I can say I never felt like I was enough. I just never felt like in any aspect of my life that I was enough, which I can say made me feel unloved. And I don't even know how, you know what I mean? But I just really did feel unloved.
So was the dynamic with your brothers the same? Like, was it all three of you? Because I know family dynamic can be quite different.
Yeah. I think my brothers had it worse.
Okay.
Right? I was the youngest and I was the girl. So there was a little bit less, but I think my brothers actually had it much, much worse than what I did.
Wow.
With me, it was, you will be successful. With them, it was like, you are not successful. You need to do something about it. That type of push.
Outside of this push, what was the family dynamic like between your parents in this whole situation as you're growing up? Did she support him? Did she counter it? Was there any balance?
To a degree, she wasn't as harsh as my dad. You know what I mean? But she did support it. She did want the best for me, essentially, and she did want me to do well. But it wasn't a life or death when it came to her. My dad really was the pusher. And my mom she was a stay-at-home mom. She really just wanted me to do well. Like I said, it's part of the African way. So it's not that you know any other way. That your kids have to be on this pedestal and be this something.
It's very much keeping up with the norm or keeping up with what's expected.
Yeah.
Did you have any sort of traditional religion involved from either of your parents?
So that was, I guess, the interesting part is that my mom went to a church and it was a Christian church. My dad, not saved, no belief in anything. Growing up, I would have called him an atheist. That there was nothing there. There was no belief in God. There was nothing. It just didn't really matter to him. My mom went to a particular church and I went along with her. It was a Pentecostal church. It was started by missionaries and it was a good church. I specifically remember the pastor had a very big influence over my life. I was in Sunday school right up until I was about 10 years old. And then I came out of Sunday school. And funny enough, the pastor was a lawyer.
Oh, wow.
So I think I might have asked him a question about being a lawyer and what is the ethical point of view or the moral point of view of being a lawyer and a pastor.
I could see you as a little girl saying this. Funny. So maybe he inspired you.
Yeah, I actually do think he did to some degree. And I really think he did have an impact on my life in that I would ask him questions and his response wasn't, what are you doing? Why would you ask me this? He didn't shut me down. He didn't dismiss me. And I would ask him the type of questions I knew I couldn't ask at home. So, for example, I remember the one time, the first question I asked him was, tattoos. What is the Christian view on tattoos? Can we have them? Because I've seen Christians with tattoos.
How old should you have been when you asked this question?
Probably like 10, 11.
Yeah.
And he really didn't dismiss me because if I had asked a question like that at home, I would have been smacked. What are you doing talking about tattoos? What are you thinking about? Where's your mind going to? So I do think if the church had remained open to the point when I was going to get saved, I probably would have gotten saved under him. So what happened with the church was that it closed down. He and another pastor decided to merge churches. And it was discovered that the other pastor was a drunkard.
Wow.
And so that dissipated, and he was already off at it, and he resigned as pastor. So there was this bunch of people, I would say about 40, 50 people who were left without a church. And that was just it. I still would love to give him a call and find him and just find out what actually did happen at that point in time. And from there on, we had to go look for another church, and we church hopped.
So before that, before we get too far ahead, how did your mom find that church? Did she have any sort of Christian background before?
She had a Christian background before, but she found that church. One of her friends told her about the church, and then she started going there, and she got saved in that church.
Okay.
Yeah.
How did that dynamic play out in your home? Now, your mom is a Christian. You said she had gotten saved, but your dad is an atheist. Did that create any tension, or was it like live and let live type situation? And how did that play out in your perspective of choosing your path?
With my parents, if it ever caused friction, I'd never seen it.
Okay.
It was really much a live and let live. You do what you need to do. I'll do what I need to do. And they just went about their ways, you know, just like you have a hobby, I have a hobby, you do your thing. But then again, that church wasn't necessarily a witnessing church. So I never really heard my mother say anything or witness or anything like that. It wasn't one of those types of churches, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
Yeah, she just did her own thing, went to church. She was allowed to bring friends over and whatnot. There was no restrictions in terms of the unsaved husband. There was nothing like that. He just let her do whatever she wanted to do.
That's quite amazing in and of itself.
Yeah, well, that's my dad. Off he goes. So if I go back to how I got saved, actually, I was in school, in primary school. I had a friend, and her name was Sophie. She was a missionary's daughter. Her parents were missionaries from Tucson.
Okay.
So we became friends. Shame. We all knew she was a Christian. I was the quiet kid in class. Like I said, I had a very low self-esteem. So I was the quiet kid in class. I was the teacher's pet. I did my work. I didn't try to do my best and work hard. So those were the friends she had to hang out with because they weren't really other Christian kids in the class. So she automatically became part of our group of friends when she came over, probably, I'd say like grade 3. That would make me like, 7, 8 years old. And we were friends right through primary school. Yeah, I just remember we would do sleepovers when it's a birthday and go to parties and whatnot. What I do remember was thinking Sophie was a strange friend. I really remember specifically thinking that this is like a weird friend with a weird family. For example, as kids, we went to go watch a movie that had swearing, right? And afterwards, she's like, I'm going to get me in so much trouble. My parents are going to kill me. I'm going to be in so much trouble. I don't know what to do. I have to tell my parents. I watched the movie with swearing. No, no, no. And with me, it was okay. My parents didn't really necessarily care. No, it wasn't a big deal. She went home, and afterwards at school, I asked her, so what happened with your parents? And she said, my dad spoke to me, and then he told me to go upstairs to my room and pray. And I heard that, and I was like, what? Like,
yeah.
Like, if that was me, I would have been smacked, right? And that's the end of it, you know. But for your parents to, at the end of it all, they talk to you and then they tell you, go up to your room and pray. My parents didn't even speak to me. They would just, they just smack me and off I go.
And you're done.
Yeah, and that's it. But you need to go and pray. And I was like, wow, that's such an odd family, like really, really odd. And there were so many other things that I noticed about her, but I was like, she's my strange friend. But
so when you say strange, was it appealing strange or was it just like weird strange?
No, it was whatever, you know. We all had our own little quirks and whatnot. Yeah. So no, it was really whatever.
Your first look into a cultural divide here, like this is not how I'm raised. This is very strange.
Yes, totally strange how I'm raised. Like she had an allowance, which I never had in my entire life, right? And our parents were very generous. Now, the funny thing is the difference in that my parents, by the time I was in grade 3, they were pretty affluent. There were a couple of cars, we had a big house. We weren't poor, but my parents was very much, we buy food, we cover your schooling, and we cover your basic clothing. Everything else you need to sort out yourself.
Oh.
And that is the work hard, work hard, work hard. So honestly, from high school onwards, I always had a job because I couldn't do anything going on that. So she had an allowance, and I'm like, oh, that's so nice of your parents to give you an allowance, be so generous, and to just give you stuff. My parents would like that. I had to
Earn it.
work. Yeah, I had to work. If I wanted something, I needed to do something in order to get it, like wash the car or whatnot. But there was never just freebies within our household. Funny enough, going back into that, I really struggled a bit with that because if you are relatively affluent, then all your friends are relatively affluent. And you're the only one who just doesn't have the things you ask for. Or if you ask for the latest this, I'll work. It really isolated me to a degree. As much as I said Sophie was weird, but I felt different. I felt out. And it
plays into that self-esteem thing
Yes.
because you're at the same economic level, but your parents essentially are raising you as if you're still back in Zim.
Yeah.
Or I don't know, we would say on the farm. Where it's like, okay, well, as if you're scraping by.
Yeah.
But the money's there.
Yeah.
And so then even though you have that, like you said, that group of friends where you should be equal and you are in some sense, your parents aren't letting you live that way. So then, you would feel, I'm the weird one. I'm the strange one.
Yeah. We were friends right up until they left when that was around about grade 8. So back to my testimony, jumping around here.
No problem.
Like I said, we were all the quiet kids, the kids who would listen in class, the kids who would do what was required. We weren't the naughty kids, the straight arrows, essentially, in school. The change moment in me that I can say was 9/11. Strange enough. 9/11 happened. And in the house I grew up in, there was always news. If the TV was on, it wasn't a movie, it was news. That's all we listened to. CNN I know all these correspondents on CNN.
Wow.
Read Time magazines. It was part of the success. Understand the world, understand what you're going into. So it was really, really, really big. I didn't necessarily understand it at the time, why it was so big. It was just something that happened in another part of the world for me. And there's lots of things, horrible things happening in the world.
Yeah.
But I remember it really, really affected Sophie. And that's why it was an event I was like, whoa, something changed here. Something in the world has changed. Something happened. I remember we even prayed, the whole school prayed for the families in 9/11. And Sophie was really distraught about it. And I'd never seen her that distraught, which caused me to read up about it and find out what happened. And when you do find out what happened, it was a horrific story. I would never have if it weren't necessarily for her. And it was really, really sad and something that just raged on in my mind, like, this is really horrible. And a couple of weeks afterwards, we just as kids were just sitting around and we were talking. And one of the conversations was like, wow, what if Namibia was bombed by terrorists? What if something happened to us and we were bombed by terrorists? And Sophie was right next to me and it was all our friends. And we were all giving our opinion and whatnot about what we would do in bomb shelters and where we would hide and whatnot. And as we had that conversation, Sophie was right next to me and she said, if we were bombed, I don't mind because I know where I would be going. I'd be going to heaven. And she looked at me, nobody else in the group, but me specifically. And she said, where would you be going to if you were to die?
Wow.
And that hit me. And it was the very, very first time in my entire life where I can say, I really thought about that. Where am I going to go to where I die? And I responded to it and I said, I'm going to go to heaven. And I knew I was lying. I knew a complete lie. But it was really like a bomb. Sorry for lack of...
No, but appropriate.
Hit me. A bomb that hit me. And I was like, wow, if I were to die, I'm not going to heaven.
How did you know you weren't going to heaven? If you were to look back now, could you pinpoint it, or was it just something that your own spirit testified to you?
Yeah, it was my own spirit, because there wasn't necessarily outright sin, for example. Obviously, we're all sinners. We all do things that we're not.
So you weren't acting out.
Yeah, it was my spirit. It was just, I'm not going to go to heaven. If I were to die today, I'm not going to go to heaven. And that evening, funny enough, I had a dream. And we were in a war zone and I was just running away and hiding, and I did not want to die because I knew I was not going to make heaven my home. And that stayed in my heart. I would love to say I got saved immediately.
So you lied to her, but then did she leave it?
Yeah, she left
And you
it.
guys just kept going?
But that affected me.
Wow.
It really, really affected me right up until the day I got saved. That exchange affected me.
It exposed something that you probably didn't realize was there before.
Yeah.
That's your sin nature.
Exactly.
If we say that.
Yeah.
And during this time, were you going to a different church? You said you were church hopping. Had you been going to a church somewhere?
So here's the thing with me. Unfortunately, I am stubborn, and my poor children have inherited that from me. I'm not just going to make a decision just because I'm making a decision. I want to find things out for myself. Even to this day, I'm not going to just do something because I'm told you must do this. I need to have a conviction about it. I need to, within myself, make that decision. And once I have a conviction about something, nothing can stop me. This is what I'm doing. Nobody's going to sway me or... So with that, I don't even know why. When looking back, I wanted to find out more about God. I could have just asked my friend. The logical thing would have been to just ask her, but I didn't for some other reason. And I also could have just read the Bible because there were Bibles in our house. I didn't. I just went around almost aimlessly, just trying to understand and trying to figure out. And it was that point in time. So I had been asking my mom's pastor questions, but it was round about 2001 when the church just split. And then we started going to random churches. I'd go with my mom. We went to so many different churches. It was insane. All Pentecostal, all charismatic. I even remember this one church we went to, and at the end of the service, everybody needed to be prayed for. All the new people needed to be prayed for. And the people stood behind me, they stood and they whispered in my ear, listen, when he touches your head and he shifts you backwards, then you fall, right? Don't worry, we'll catch you, but just fall.
They literally told you to fall?
Yes, they did. And we stood there and I did as I was told and we fell. And I remember laying on the floor just thinking, oh, okay, all right. When can I get up? I didn't know.
That's so strange that they would tell you that. Wow. So obviously your mom never found a place that she liked.
Yeah, she didn't. And it eventually got to a point where I just got so annoyed with all of it. And I think I even went to one Portuguese church, but the entire service was in Portuguese. And then there was a translator. And I was like, no, I don't want to sit and do this. And I was just searching and seeking. I'd listen to these TBN things occasionally, but I just don't feel like I ever found the right fit, for lack of better words. I don't actually feel like I found it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So I did church hop, but there's nothing. Sophie was still my friend right through that. So
did she ever invite you to church during this time?
Not church, but to concerts.
Okay.
So I think I might have attended 1 or 2 concerts before that. But even in the concert, I just was not there at that point in my life. I think her parents played country music and whatnot. And I was just like, oh, okay. She would regularly invite me to concerts, but I was like, no, my Friday is my Friday. And we would just go with my friends and we'd walk around the mall the whole Friday evening. Until we get picked up at like 8 o'clock and then go home. You know what I mean? But there was the one day. So we got to high school and a lot changed because I went to a different school and things were, I was growing up, essentially. I was basically going through puberty. There was changes in me. There was changes in the way that I thought, in the questions I asked and whatnot. And even then, like I said, it was still at the back of my mind. If you die, you're going to go to hell. You're going to go to hell when you die. You're going to go to hell when you die. And while all of this is happening, I can say when I went to high school, it's really when my self-esteem when it became more apparent that I had a low self-esteem, that I just felt unloved. I felt like, I'm never enough. I'm not good enough for anything. Wow. I'm not good enough for anyone. It really, really, that year, it really got bad, where I really just felt an isolation, a loneliness, to a degree, an anger as well. And I couldn't even put it into words. At that point in time, there was no way, but I knew it was inside of me. And I knew that's how I felt about myself and about everyone and everything. And it was one of those, on the outward, I seemed great. I did well at sport. I did well at school. I had friends. I looked perfectly normal. I looked like there was nothing wrong with me. I had a great life. I come from a good home. But on the inside, I wasn't okay. And I knew I wasn't okay. And grade 8 was the year when things started getting wild within our age group. Like kids started going clubbing and there were kids who were smoking dacha. Like in primary school, nobody was doing anything. We were just innocent, essentially. But grade 8 is when things started
experimenting.
Yeah, and started brewing and whatnot. So there came a point when Sophie invited me to a concert. And I was like, okay, I'm coming. I'm coming this week. And she's like, it's going to be good. It's going to be great. And I watched the concert. And one of the things that struck me with the concert was this girl. And she had this I Love Jesus sweater. And she was rapping. And not necessarily the words, but it was just her confidence that just really struck me. I was like, wow, you're standing on a stage. You are proclaiming Jesus at the top of your lungs. You are not scared of anything. You are brave. You are everything I want to be.
Wow.
You know, everything on the inside that I don't feel I have, I could see it in this particular person. The music, I don't even remember the music. I do remember just looking at her rapping and thinking, wow, that is so amazing that you have that confidence, that you can wear that sweater that says, I love Jesus, and not care what anybody thinks about you or care about what anybody says about you. That's who you are. And I was like, that's what I want to be. That's the confidence that I want. And that concert is where I gave my life to Jesus and where I made the decision, because there's absolutely no way that she could be like that without Jesus. That was what I put in my head. Like, there's no way she's like that. The only way she could be like that is by being a Christian and giving her life to Jesus. And I looked at that and I was like, that's what I want. That is the thing that is missing, is Jesus. That is the thing that can heal me.
Yeah.
I'll be fine if I get that.
Yeah. And how old were you?
13.
You were 13.
Yeah.
Wow.
And that evening, I gave my life to Jesus Christ. There were like so many of us that prayed. It was like this mass prayer.
Wow.
It must have been like 30, 40 people, and everybody just prayed.
Who was the pastor at the time?
Steve Anderson.
Okay. And that was his daughter?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, his eldest.
Wow. And so from that, addressing the hell thing, did you feel confident after that decision as well?
Definitely. But I can genuinely say my confidence it was like something happened to me. You know what I mean? Like, I transformed.
And would you say it was more instant?
It was instant.
That's incredible.
Like, people who knew me from primary school and people who knew me into high school would not have said I'm the same person. Like, I was able to speak in public. I was just not afraid anymore.
Even knowing you now, when you said that you struggled with that, it kind of threw me. I was like, what? Like, I know you now. And that's probably a word I would use to describe you, is confident.
Yeah.
You're very self-assured, very confident, very kind in speaking your mind, but very like unbothered if people think different than you. So that it was kind of surprising when you did share that. I was like, oh, wow.
Yeah.
And so you literally pinpointed it to that night, that transformation.
Yeah. Like I said, I transformed. Obviously, self-esteem is something you do work at, especially as a girl.
For sure.
For
sure.
But I can say that particular point, that particular area was changed. I'm still an introvert to a degree, but that fear was gone.
Yeah.
That timidity, that was gone.
Did that change your relationship with your parents? Did that come home with you? Did either of them ever comment? How did that change the dynamic at home? Progressing through school, did you find that you weren't as bothered by the pressure?
With my parents, I don't think they noticed a thing, to be honest, because they just viewed me as, good kid, does her homework, does what she needs to do, she carries on.
You said outwardly you were that person.
Yes.
It was just the internal struggle.
Yes, exactly.
Okay, that makes sense.
So there wasn't really much of a change in respect of that. We just carried on as a family. But my friends noticed. Wow, she's not and it was more taken as, not necessarily she got saved, but it was more taken as, oh, she's just grown up a bit now. She's just different. But it really wasn't that. It honestly was getting saved.
Yeah. So how did your relationship grow with God after salvation? Did you start going to church with them? How did you find your way into that church?
Okay, so I would go to church all by myself, but they left very quickly after I got saved, literally like a month. It was sad because she was my friend and my friend was leaving, but I'd made up my mind about
Salvation.
Jesus. Yes, that was absolutely. But they had to leave because of visa issues, and so Pastor Jala came, and that was also a couple of months. That was really quick. But in that point in time, the church grew. It was 40 people. It grew to about 200.
Whoa.
He moved the church to a different area, and it grew to about 200 in the course of a month, 2 months. It was just this boom. And it was a revival. And I wish I had known it when I was that age, but I didn't realize it when it was happening. It's only now that you actually realize, oh, wow, a church to grow like that is pretty rare.
Yeah.
I just thought, oh, okay, this is what we do. It was mostly university students as well as high school students. In my high school as well specifically, it was all out at my school. You had kids standing during break time on tables, street preaching. It was hectic.
That's incredible.
People getting saved, more and more people just coming to church. And like I said, I didn't realize it. I just thought, oh, this is what we do. This is just...
Well, if you've never known anything different, you think it's normal. I mean, it happened so soon after salvation that you're just like, oh, this is normal.
Yeah. I think the difficulty, though, was that as the church grew, there was something on every single night. If you wanted to be in church, you could be in church every single night. Unfortunately, it was also pretty late nights as well. And my parents were not having it. Remember, work hard, schoolwork and whatnot. So I was limited to AM, PMs and Wednesdays. That was it. I couldn't really go to anything else because my parents were like, no, not happening. Then my mom also came on board as well.
What made her go with you?
What she told me was that she saw me going to church and I was really dedicated about it. I was really into church. I wasn't going to miss a service. I wasn't going to miss anything. And she didn't have a proper church either. So she's like, let me just join her.
This is about.
Yeah.
Why is she so intense?
Yeah. And then she stayed. One thing I can say is, though, high school was hard. As much as I was an individual in that this is what I believe in, this is the type of person who I am, I was socially awkward to a degree. Because I didn't necessarily do what everybody wanted. I didn't necessarily always go with the flow. I did have friends. I'm talking about the whole bigger picture of high school in and of itself. So it made me socially awkward to a degree with peers. And it was just hard because I was made fun of a lot. And high school and you're a girl and you're just trying to figure yourself out. So I did find that extremely difficult, if not the hardest part of my salvation, getting through to matric still saved.
Yeah, I was going to say, was that because of the pull of wanting to be accepted, or was it just the pressure?
I didn't mind peer pressure. I could easily say no. It just sucked that you weren't invited to things. It just wasn't nice that you weren't always included. And also in that day, because the church grew the way it grew, there was a lot in government, actually. Windhoek is a small place. Namibia is a small place where there was a belief and a rumor, something going on that the church was a bit of a cult. And what are you doing to our children? You take our kids and you brainwash our children. And they made fun of the church. So the kids in school would make fun of the church.
So did it just wear you down? Emotionally?
Yeah, it would wear me down. I didn't necessarily care what people thought about me. I still don't. But
it's tiring. It's exhausting. Just get off my back. Leave me alone.
It really just sucked to just go through that and deal with that.
But did you ever leave?
No, I stayed.
Good.
I stayed right through. But like I said, I couldn't really do everything else on all the activities. It was just AM, PM, Wednesday. And I made sure I never skipped a service right up until matric.
So once you matric, what brought you to South Africa? Because obviously now you're here, so...
Yeah, studying. Okay. So still in the backside of the home life where you need to excel. You need to become successful.
Education is the key.
Yeah, education. Most African families, you need to get a PhD before they're satisfied. Something I don't believe in anymore. But I was still driven. Not necessarily I need to be successful. Because of where I went to school and my peers and my parents, it was never a thought to not go to university. That wasn't even a concept.
For sure.
With anybody I knew, oh, you're not going to university. It would really just have
That'd
been,
be strange.
yeah, the lazy boy in class that,
Exactly.
that sits next to me and copies my German homework. He's not going to university.
Yeah.
That type of thing. So it was always something I was going to do.
So what made you choose here?
Honestly, to get away.
Yeah. Where did you study?
I studied at Varsity College.
Okay.
Yeah, I just wanted to get away. Oh, I was a bit tired of my parents. I was a bit tired of the pressure. I was tired of the, you need to be this, you need to be this. Yeah, there was no way I was going to go to school there. And the option I gave my parents was, okay, if I'm not going to study, then I'm going to take a gap year. And they were, nope, nope, okay, off you go. And I didn't tell them, I just want to get away. I just want to leave the house.
Yeah.
You know? I just don't want to live in those circumstances anymore. So there were some kids in the Vintage Church who got saved, and they were in Cape Town and they were studying. And one of the guys, he was studying medicine, and my mom told him, listen, you better get my daughter in church. You know, she better get into the Potter's house.
Yeah. Don't just go there
and do your own thing and go party or whatnot. And I came here, but funny enough, in the first week, because it was that I want to get out, I just want to get out, I can't do this anymore, I actually went to a party. I went with some kids. This is the first time, I'm going to a party. I didn't drink or anything, but I went to the party and it was this huge, huge UCT party at Ratanka Junction that they have every year. I was there and I came home and I thought to myself, no, man, I actually don't want to do this. This is not my scene, not doing this.
Wow.
So I literally just walked around until 3 a.m. because there was nothing appealing about it. You know, if you're not drinking, there's nothing to do, essentially. Yeah. And from that moment onwards, a conviction developed and I was like, nope, I am full on, all out. When those doors are open, I am going to be in church.
And that church was the Athlone Church?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay, which is now Rondebosch?
Yes.
And who was the pastor at the time?
Mark Sanderlin.
Okay, Mark Sanderlin.
Yeah.
Okay. And did you find yourself fit in quite easily?
Very, very easily. It was a small church. So coming from a big church where you're, I can't say a number, but you're not necessarily...
You can hide easier.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. And you come into a small church, everybody likes you and everybody wants to be around you and everybody wants to fellowship with you. I remember we would go sleepovers at Beryl's house all weekend and it was great. Like as a single in the church, we just had the time. We went on outreaches. It was amazing. And
it seems more like a family rather than
it was
a church, a congregation.
Definitely was. Even the saints who are still in that church now, I can do nothing but thank them because it really felt like a family. It felt like the older people were my parents while I was there. It was really wonderful.
And everyone watches out for everyone else.
Yeah.
Like in a big church, you can kind of get away with being on the fringes, but in a small church, someone's like, what are you doing? Why aren't you not? Let's go.
Exactly.
Where were you Tuesday? Where were you?
Exactly.
Yeah. It's good when you're away from your family and you need to feel like you belong. So, of course, that's where you met Ben.
Yes.
Who is now your husband.
Yeah.
And you said you got married young.
Yeah. So I had known him. Obviously, he was in the church already. I'd known him. We were friends with all the singles and whatnot. We hung out as groups and whatnot.
But you only went there when you were what?
Yeah, I was 17 into 18.
Oh, okay.
And then we got together the year after.
So you didn't waste any time?
No, he didn't waste any time.
Yeah, let's make sure it's very clear. Ben was not going to let anyone snag you. I remember us talking a few times. He was very pursuing. Pursued
definitely.
You very hard.
Yeah.
Oh, she's the one I want.
Definitely.
That is so nice, though.
Yeah, it really is.
I feel like wanted.
Yes.
That much. She's like, okay, I'll marry you. I always tell my husband that as well. I'm like, babe, I'm so glad that, not to sound weird, it's not like he didn't give me options, but he was just so aggressive in his pursuit.
Yeah.
It's like, I can follow this guy. If he wants, and he wants me, let's do this.
Yeah, exactly.
And so now, obviously, time moves on, but you have 2 girls?
Yes,
and
2 girls.
How old are they? What's their names?
Anna Joy, she is turning 10 next week.
Time flies.
Yeah, and
little
Ellie, my little Ellie, she is 2 years old.
Does she have your personality?
She does. She actually does.
That's her father's face, though.
Yeah, she actually does. As much as I can say, you're the stubbornness, no, that's me. That's totally, I'm looking at myself.
Look, you turned out great. So
yeah.
I'm stoked for her. And so now you guys, how long have you been in Stellenbosch?
10 years.
Wow.
Yeah.
Did you come when you were pregnant?
Yes, we were sent out when I was pregnant and I gave birth here.
Wow.
Yeah.
So this is the only place she's ever known.
Nah, she doesn't know Athlone or Rondebosch.
Your parents ended up following you at some point. I've met your mom and I've met your brother.
It was only recently, only like about a year and a half ago, when they came down. When they were in Namibia, they moved back to Zim almost as a retirement type of thing. But things really didn't work out, and they decided to come down on the
To be
side.
close to you guys.
Yes, and to be close to the grandkids.
Okay, so now your mom is in your church
Yes,
and your brother as well?
yes, he got saved like 7 years ago.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
That's great. And your oldest brother?
No, not saved.
Not yet.
Not yet. Not yet. And my dad also, not yet.
Not yet. But there's something to be said about longevity.
Yeah.
You know, you want people to be saved earlier than later, of course. But he's watched you change. He's watched his wife. He's watched his son.
Yeah, he's seen the transformation.
And I think when it comes down to it, he's going to know. I think people know the truth. They just don't want to surrender.
Yeah.
You know, not everyone gets those chances, but when they do, you know, God's grace is so sufficient. Yeah. It's so amazing. And I think, hey, he's still breathing. There's a chance every day from your day for him to get a revelation, and your brother. And so when you look back, did you ever imagine your life would have turned out this way?
No, not at all. Like, absolutely never, not in a million years. I would never have thought about getting married so young. I had a life plan. I was actually going to be a lawyer. I was like, I'm going to be Secretary General of the United Nations. That's the thing. I always wanted to make a difference. That was always been my heart, is to make a difference. That's all I ever wanted to do. Yeah. And so, funny enough, when I decided to study law, it was because I'd researched it. If I want to go into this, what do I need? What would be the best degree? And my parents were upset, but that's another story in and of itself.
They didn't want you to be a lawyer?
No.
What did they want you to be?
Accountant.
But your dad was.
Yeah.
So of course.
Yeah.
But law it's hard work.
Yeah.
And it can be exciting.
Yeah.
Depending on what branch you go into.
Yeah. I was so into human rights law. I was so into, I want to change the world. I'm going to change the world. I want to do something. I want to make a difference. Whether it's a Somalian child, you know, whose rights I'm fighting for. I was really into the human rights law. That was my heart. Since I can remember being a child, I want to make a difference. I want to change people's lives. I want to do something to help people. That's all I want to do. So this was not even getting married and, you know, but then as I carried on in church, I realized, no, what I'm doing is making a difference.
Absolutely.
You know, what I'm doing is making an even bigger difference.
This is interesting. So this is a little tangent I didn't expect us to go to, but it's interesting to me that when you decided to put God first, and it didn't mean that you couldn't do the rest.
Yeah.
But when you put God first, now we're full circle where you are making a huge difference. Yeah. And God gave you the
desires of your heart.
What you wanted, but by doing it his way.
Yeah.
I mean, you've been able to practice law and do what you need to do and make a living and work with your husband. But you found your purpose and making a difference through what you do for God.
Yeah.
You can still fight for the rights for people and a huge difference.
Yeah.
You know, I've been to your church and you see the people's lives, and that's the best thing. I just think that's cool that because you never told me that before, that's what you want to do, is make a difference. And here you are.
Really that is what I can't say what drives me. God drives me, but you know what I mean?
For sure.
Like when I feel purpose is when I'm making a difference. So even like, the stuff with the churches, I'm like, yay, I'm doing something. I'm making a difference. You know what I mean? Rather than just the mundane. You work because you have to work. But it really is a driving force behind me, is making a difference. It really...
And then obviously, not everyone would know this, but Stellenbosch is a university town.
Yeah.
So you are literally every day surrounded by kids just like you, who maybe don't have a purpose, or they're confused, or you know, and they're all hiding it behind this mask. And yet here's this church spreading the gospel.
Exactly.
You know, and you have such good memories of that family. And now you're in a place where you could do the same thing.
Yes.
Make a difference again.
Yes, I am just so happy as a pastor's wife. I love being a pastor's wife.
That's so
I love just meeting people, because these are people I would never have met in my natural life. These are different cultures, different ways of doing things, different colors, different everything. And I just love it. I love having someone over at my house and they like the food, and it just brings me so much joy. I love praying with somebody and talking to somebody about Jesus Christ. It just, because I know it's making a difference.
It just makes
it just makes me the happiest person.
That's perfect. I think that is a great place to close, because really, I think deep down, that's what most people want. We want to make a difference. We don't want to just go through life like, do I even matter? I think that's incredible. And I'm so glad that we got a chance to talk.
Yeah.
And I appreciate you sharing your testimony and the unique spin on it. Thank you.
Thank you, Rachel.
Yeah, it's great. So again, I want to say thank you to each and every one of you listening. Without a listener, the story can't be heard. If you would like to contact me with questions, comments, or ideas, please do so through the dedicated podcast email, notthesame.cfm@gmail.com. I will do my best to reply. And as always, please share these stories with someone else, regardless of their spiritual status. Don't underestimate the power of a transformed life. Before we go, I want to encourage you. If you are not a Christian or were but have since turned away, you can be. John 3:16 says God sent his only son, Jesus, to die for our sin. A simple prayer is all it takes to start over. Acknowledge your sin, recognize Jesus paid the price for that sin, and sincerely ask him to forgive you, and he will. So until next time, this is Rachel Heinberg, and you've been listening to Not the Same.